Good afternoon and welcome to this SEC Week 9 report from Rattle and Hum Sports. I'm Brian Houston. Thanks very much for joining us on this Thursday. Well, I think it's Wednesday afternoon. That's how crazy this whole week has been. And joining me now to talk about the SEC and the upcoming ball games, of course, is Ses Guerra, the author of Gumbo for the Tiger Soul, from his home in Houston now. Ses, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and yeah, crazy is a great way to characterize this week. It's been 3 days of madness here down here in H Town after the remnants of the hurricane this past weekend, and getting back to the regular work week. But we're all set and ready to go.
Well, trust me, it was very much crazy up here as well because of the same kind of problems. So I'm glad we've all kind of survived it. I think we're getting ready for another wave of it, though, at least up here. So we'll see what happens. We're crossing our fingers we can stay dry for a bit. Let's talk a little bit
Right.
about some of the big games of the past week. I first want to
Okay.
start off with Ole Miss knocking off Texas A&M 23-3. This was the only battle of two ranked schools that was played last weekend in the SEC, and it was supposed to be, you thought, maybe A&M's coming out party. If they were going to really establish themselves as the a real contender for the SEC West title, then they needed to go on the road coming off a loss to Alabama and beat this Ole Miss team, and instead they got it handed to them. What do you think about this?
Right. I got to see some of it while I was in Baton Rouge, and that game demonstrated much of my long-term theory of college football, where the emotions of these young kids really is a volatile thing, goes up and down week to week. They had a pretty decent showing against Alabama the week before. That's A&M, Texas A&M, that is. Aside from three pick sixes, they might have challenged Alabama even a little more in that game. So they shot their wad, and they come back. They travel to Oxford and really had their worst performance that I can recall under Kevin Sumlin.
I have to tell you, the thing that was so surprising to me, the one thing you don't expect with Kevin Sumlin, you may expect their defense to get riddled, but you don't expect their offense to struggle like it did. And Kyle Allen looked like he just forgot how to play quarterback in this ball game.
Right. And that has led to some stories from the Houston Chronicle down here in Houston talking about dissent in the locker room and just the poor performance of the Aggies with no vision or long-term plan for the program. And I don't know what to make of that, aside from the fact that maybe it was just a bad day and a little bit of the fact that some of the quarterbacks were disgruntled, and it all kind of was just a meeting of the harmonic convergence of sorts of some emotions, and it just played against the Aggies, and Ole Miss took advantage of it, much like Ole Miss took advantage of LSU last year. So it kind of reminded me of that situation a little bit, and you never know what to expect from Hugh Freeze and the Ole Miss Rebels.
Well, apparently so. I will say this. I did find it odd because it seemed like Kyle Allen, who had played really good quarterback since middle of last year when he took the job from Kenny Thrill Hill and played very solidly for the rest of the year, had a rough game. You mentioned the three pick sixes against Alabama, and then comes out this past week and had just a dreadful night. Again, 12 out of 34 for only 88 yards and one interception. Just a horrible night for a college quarterback in a Sumlin offense. And the fact that Kyler Murray is still standing there on the sidelines, the Texas phenom from Allen, and has the element not only of being able to throw the football but can run around, kind of like another version of Johnny Manziel. Yet he didn't really get much of a look in this ball game.
Right, right. At one point in time, Kyle Allen was 1 for 16, and his numbers overall were atrocious. My understanding of the Kyler Murray situation was that in the previous week, kind of barked out some curse words at one of the coaches after getting pulled out, and so his punishment was riding the pine this week, and so they went with a third string quarterback, and CBS showed Kyler Murray there just waiting in the sidelines, and it was an embarrassment to the family. So who knows what's going on, and if any of that stuff will rear its ugly head this coming week when the Aggies take on South Carolina. South Carolina coming off of a bye, should be rested, and second game under the new coaching staff there, so there should be a little more cohesiveness, I would imagine. So A&M still has a lot to prove, and that season can go one way or the other for them at this point.
I will tell you, I think Kevin Sumlin's got some problems right now. I mean, again, this team has steadily regressed from that first year when Johnny Football and company entered the SEC and caught lightning in a bottle. After that, it's been 8 wins, 7 wins. Now this year, it looked like they were going to contend for the West, and at this point, they've lost 2 in a row, and they've still got LSU to play and others. And it's just not looking real positive for the Aggies right now. And you start to wonder whether that program is really all that, whether someone is all that as far as coach of an Aggie football team.
Right, you're exactly right, and I've mentioned it to some of my close Aggie friends down here in Houston, who have otherwise been very, very satisfied with Kevin Sumlin, even though on an annual basis, year by year, it's been steadily trending downward. And unless something happens this year, if he trends down from where he was going, um, he's gonna be in the hot seat. Although he does have a contract that makes it almost a lock that he will be back no matter how this season turns out, unless he chooses to go off and has a college that's willing to pay his buyout. But they can't run the ball. And in today's football, you have to be able to run the football, and they just can't. So that's the beginning of the domino effect, and the wheels are coming off of that offense.
All right, let's move on to another big ball game, and that was the Alabama-Tennessee game. I know last week you did say that you felt like Tennessee would win the ball game. I thought there was no chance of that happening with them playing in Tuscaloosa. But Tennessee gave them a heck of a football game where early on it looked like Alabama was going to really hand it to Tennessee. And to Butch's credit, the Vols played well and held on down the stretch and made it a tough game.
Sure did. I predicted Tennessee would win, and they had the lead with 5 minutes to go, but could not get that defensive stop. And, so they were one defensive stop away from pulling off a major upset in Tuscaloosa. I think, even though they're losing these close games, if Butch Jones can manage to keep the attitude of that team together in a positive way, they've got a manageable schedule the rest of the way and could end up with 8 wins and 4 losses, and that's right where everybody expected them to be.
Yeah, really, this kind of reminds me of what Arkansas did last year, where they seemed to improve as the year went on. They got off to a slow start and lost some ball games, but once they got it going, they really started to turn it on and look like a good football team at the end of the year. And I got to say, based on the performance of Tennessee against Georgia and then turning around and the game that they gave Alabama, they look very impressive right now. They look like they're trending upward.
Right, right. And they do, as I said, they've got a manageable schedule in games that, could be pick 'em type of games with Kentucky, South Carolina, and Missouri with their SEC, and Vanderbilt remaining in the SEC, and North Texas there also on the schedule. So 5 games remaining, and they could all be pick 'em at this point in time. So they have their destiny in their own hands. So it's still possible to salvage a really nice season there in Knoxville.
And then at the same time, I heard Gary Danielson say on the broadcast Saturday that Alabama, he said he felt like after the ball game that Nick Saban was going to say, and I don't know if he did or not, but he felt like Nick Saban was going to say that A, he was very happy for the win, but B, he's got a very tired football team on his hands, a team that had spent a lot of time on the road and a lot of, a 4-game SEC schedule there that they went through and acquitted themselves nicely for the most part, but they were ready for a bye week.
Right. Alabama has had 8 consecutive games, and the last 4 games were Georgia, Arkansas, A&M, and Tennessee. So those were 4 major tests, and so that team was beat up. And I noticed a couple of times when I was watching it there that a lot of players came up out of the pile hobbling and reaching for shoulders and arms. And so
Yeah.
I think that the walking wounded right now.
Well, they lost a couple of safeties in the ball game. I don't know what their status will be by next week, but the 2 starting safeties had gone out of the game, and I thought, man, this could be a real blow to a team that had struggled in the secondary, and then seemed to get all that worked out, and then to lose those 2 guys, it put them behind the 8 ball a bit defensively last week.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed, yeah, the 2 safeties, that could be an issue, but their star linebacker, Ragland, I noticed him specifically a couple of times coming out of the pile where he was just reaching for shoulders and elbows and coming out hobbling. And so I'm sure he's going to need quite a bit of treatment over the next few days and leading up into the November 7th game against LSU.
Got to tell you, too, the thing that is impressive, though, about Alabama is that they just continue to find ways to get it done. Again, Derrick Henry with 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. They're getting solid quarterback play from Coker, although he did throw a pick. He was 21 out of 27 for 247 yards. That's the kind of day you want from your quarterback. So at this point, with them getting a chance to get a rest at the best possible time going into the LSU game on November the 7th, Alabama seems to be, if not playing the best football in the Southeastern Conference, they got to be in the top 2 or 3 right now.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of love and came out as an immediate 6.5 point favorite coming out of Las Vegas too. So even though LSU is a little more highly ranked, Alabama's getting a lot of love. As Coach Miles characterized it, they're a traditional Alabama team. And what that means is they can run the ball, pass when they need to, and have a very stingy, well-coached, complicated defense that's going to give teams a lot of problems.
No question about that. Now we also talk about the fact that Auburn is coming off of a 4 overtime loss to the Arkansas Razorbacks, and there you talk about trending. The Auburn Tigers are trending downward right now.
Right, and their schedule is going to be very problematic. They have Ole Miss at home, then they travel to College Station, Georgia at home, Idaho before facing Alabama back at home. So the road for Auburn is not going to be easy as we head into November. I've heard some drum beats that Malzahn might be on the hot seat. And that he might not even be at Auburn next year, taking one of the openings that is available at around the country at this point in time.
It just goes to show it's a what have you done for me in the last week kind of a business. This is a guy that took a team to the national championship game and now is having to sweat his job, and maybe rightfully so. I don't know. I mean, Auburn's never going to be a program. Auburn is not Alabama. Auburn is a solid SEC program, but they're not going to be a program that's going to be able to sustain a top 5 kind of a class year after year after year. It's just never been done for Auburn. I mean, unless something, Pat Dye came about as close as you're going to get, and that was at a time when Alabama was trending downward.
Yeah, that's very uh, confusing to me because they have great facilities. It's a beautiful campus, and they just I guess they're feeling that little brother syndrome there in Alabama. Same kind of thing that Michigan State feels in the state of Michigan. Same thing that Oklahoma State feels in the state of Oklahoma. And for a long time, A&M felt it here in the state of Texas. Feeling like the uh, redheaded stepchild per se. But yeah, it's and Auburn doesn't have a track record of hanging on to their coaches. What happened to Chiswick 2 or 3 years ago,
Right.
coming off of a national championship appearance? So 2 years
And
removed
a
from that, and
win.
he was gone. Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right. He
he
won
won
it.
the
Yeah,
he won the national championship. But
that
yeah,
that's
it's
right.
crazy. But on the other side, you turn right around and you look at so right now they're trying to salvage. I mean, they're sitting there trying to fight to get a decent bowl bid. Auburn is, and there are a lot of people kind of disgruntled with that. At the same time, Arkansas is doing almost exactly what they did last year. They get off to a slow start with high expectations, and then seem to get it going here toward the end of the season. They're starting to play Arkansas football now, and they were able to. They're getting good quarterback play, and they've got one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. And it just seems like that they're going in the right direction now after a slow start, and that has not been the case, previously. So, what do you think in Arkansas right now? And they're a dangerous team down the stretch here, particularly for a
Yeah,
team like LSU.
yeah, they really are. They're going to have a an easy game that we would think that it would be an easy game against UT Martin this week. Then they travel to Ole Miss and travel to LSU before finishing with Mississippi State and Missouri. So they've got quite a few challenges ahead of them too. But if they finish off the season this year the way they did last year, well then they're going to give teams like Ole Miss, LSU, and Mississippi State, Missouri a hard time, and can finish in the upper tier of the SEC. So remains to be seen, um, and how their injury factors into this end of the season.
All right, did you get a chance to go to Tiger Stadium for the Western Kentucky ball game with LSU for homecoming?
I did, and much like the experience you had, there was a weather situation. But fortunately, being part of the South Stadium Club and being a member there, you get to watch the game on a flat screen TV and enjoy the comfort of air conditioning and a nice climate and good friends. But
Quit your
yeah,
bragging there.
you know,
Well,
LSU started a little slowly, and again, there goes my theory again with this. The emotions of the game. LSU had that big game against Florida the week before, and they started out slowly, and that's kind of what I think happened to Georgia. Let me see. Georgia had the big game early on versus no, they had a big game versus South Carolina and stunk up the joint 2 weeks later versus Bama in a bad weather situation. That's the correlation I wanted to make. It was a bad weather situation for Georgia, and they just let the weather dictate it, and Alabama took them to the house. Whereas the weather situation in Baton Rouge could have dampened everybody's spirits, and it did a little bit at the beginning. But I think LSU overcame that with superior talent and execution, and took care of business.
and I've got to tell you two things. One, it's not just LSU that struggles coming off emotional wins and then has a hard time playing in the next ball game. That happens to every college team in the country.
Oh yeah.
You saw it even with Alabama playing against Tennessee. It was a struggle for them last week, and the week before they had a huge emotional win at Kyle Field against A&M.
Right, right.
It's just you just can't You can't ask a team in the Southeastern Conference to get up and play at national championship intensity every week. The schedule is just too difficult. But the fact remains they took care of business and won the football game and won it by 20 points. And it's hard to argue with that when it's all said and done.
That's right. That's right. And if the Sports Illustrated jinx ever were to take place, I think it might have, in that Leonard Fournette's poor performance of 150 yards knocked him down a bit in the Heisman Trophy eyes of all the voters. I think he took a little bit of a dive, I think, but maybe it was a little bit of that that Sports Illustrated um, cover jinx.
Hey, and I want to throw one other thing out there. For those of you who are only fair or kind of casual college football fans, that Western Kentucky team came into the game 6-1. MAC teams are good football teams, and this team was a good football team that LSU played. They're not an SEC West team, but they are a good, solid football team. That was not some chump they played this past Saturday night. That was not a cupcake.
Oh, that's right. Their passing game is something to behold, and I saw some very excellent execution, some blown coverages, and some blown coverages that Western Kentucky took advantage of. So that is a well-coached team with good athletes, just not enough to take out LSU on that night.
And then one last thing to throw in there as a factor, and I'm not making excuses for anybody, but this game was played in a driving rain for a lot of the ball game, and when it wasn't, it was awfully wet, and the field was chopped up, and yet Brandon Harris threw for 286 yards and threw 3 touchdown passes, and 2 of them went for more than 50 yards.
I would say that is one of the most encouraging things that I saw coming out of this game, was that the passing game is still continuing on an upward trend. It looks like Cam Cameron's influence is having a great impact on Brandon Harris and hopefully on the other quarterbacks as well. But looking really well, hitting some wide open receivers, running great routes. It seems as though they're in sync. Occasionally, there's some very tight coverages, and as any quarterback will experience, there just some miscommunication or just not exact execution of the passing play.
And I'm going to throw one other game in there. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the fact that Vanderbilt beat Missouri, and Missouri now has gone the entire month without a touchdown at this point, and that's just amazing to me for a team that has won the NFC East, rather the SEC East now for 2 years running going into this season. I never thought I'd hear somebody say they miss Matty Mock, but apparently they are really having some problems right now offensively.
Right. That's the poster child right now for team sports. And I tell you what, it's just so important when I don't know exactly what happened and why he was suspended, but if there's ever a situation to demonstrate how important some of these players are to their team, this is a shining example of that, where Matty Mock sits for 3 or 4 weeks. I think they won the first week without him, and just stunk it up the last 3 weeks against stiffer competition, and haven't scored a touchdown in the last 3 weeks. So amazing downfall of the two-time defending SEC East champions.
All right, we are going to move ahead. Not much else to talk about unless you want to spend a lot of time on Missouri, rather Mississippi State over Kentucky. But I'm kind of looking forward to the week here coming up. This ball game this week, we've got several games. Nothing is marquee. Everybody's going to be talking about LSU and Alabama for the next week and a half. But there are some very important games on the schedule this week. One is the early game. Ole Miss and Auburn suddenly has become a really big ball game for both of these teams. Ole Miss still trying to stay in contention, possibly for an SEC West title, and it can certainly do that with a win over Auburn. And Auburn's got to do something to kind of salvage their year.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting matchup. It's at Auburn, as you said, the early game. Uh, Gosh, I don't know what to make of it. In this crazy season we're having, when I would say expect the unexpected. Just like Georgia Tech beating Florida State on the last play of the game, and Michigan State beating Michigan when all was lost. You just never know what's going to happen, and this could likely be a game like that. I would say that Auburn, with the home field advantage there and coming off a quadruple overtime loss, I mean, it's kind of who knows what to say. Just flip the coin.
Well, and that may be what we're going to be doing in that ball game. I'm going to stay with Ole Miss, though, even though they're not real sure about whether Robert Candici.
Standing by. Standing by.
Sorry, Seth, the old Chrome froze up there for a few minutes, but back
Yeah, yeah.
now. Thank you for your
I
patience.
just I just rebooted.
Same here. So okay, we're back now. Everybody's back on screen, but we're talking about the Ole Miss and Auburn. Other ball games that we want to take a look at that are big. Obviously, the South Carolina Texas A&M game is big for A&M because they need a win in the worst way. And South Carolina right now, with nothing to play for, is just trying to maybe get their new interim coach a head coaching job. So how do you see that one?
Right. That one is at A&M. South Carolina's coming off the bye, and I'm going to predict South Carolina will win that game. I know
Okay.
that they didn't. I didn't. I know that they didn't show a whole lot during the last few games of the Spurrier tenure, but they showed a little bit of energy there when they beat Vanderbilt. They had a bye week while Texas A&M was in a very physical matchup with Ole Miss. I'll tag that along with a little bit of locker room problems, perhaps, for the Aggies, and I'm gonna predict South Carolina to pull that one out.
Okay, I think I may go that way too because I don't have a lot of faith in the Aggies right now unless they make the quarterback change and go with Kyler Murray. And it's not because I'm a big Kyler Murray fan. He just brings an extra dimension to the ball game that could really ignite this A&M offense, and they need some ignition right now. Of course, the world's largest cocktail and the Florida Gators still very much in the hunt to win the SEC East. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's right. I've heard where for the SEC to have any kind of hope for for a playoff. They need Florida to win that. Um, Florida, both teams are coming off of a bye, so there's no advantage there. Um, I'm going to stick with Florida on this one. They've had a better season, and McElwain seems to have that team trending up. And with rumors of Mark Richt heading down to Miami, I'm going to go with Florida to win that game.
I'm going to also move on to a non-conference game here. Vanderbilt plays number 18 Houston this weekend, and I just want you. I'm going to pick Houston to win this ball game because Greg Ward, the quarterback, is from John Tyler High School. I watched him in high school. He is one of the best high school quarterbacks I'd ever seen, and I watched coaches try to make him a wide receiver for 2 years at the University of Houston before somebody got a grip and figured out this kid can play. And now he's playing quarterback, and Houston's really, really good.
What's his name?
Greg Ward. And he's a fantastic quarterback.
You are in the breadbasket of quarterbacks up there in Tyler with Mahomes at Texas Tech and Ward down at U of H and of course Matt Flynn, our very own Matt Flynn came out of there. So you're in a hotbed there of quarterbacks. I'm going to pick U of H to. Yeah, I'm going to pick U of H to win that one too. The Vanderbilt hasn't really shown much. They've just, as I said earlier this year, they're trending back to being Vandy of old and barely pulling out victories over hapless Missouri team. And U of H is just lighting it up. So I'm gonna pick U of H to win that one.
All right, and then we have, of course, the Tennessee Vols taking on Kentucky. That used to be a big rivalry, although always Tennessee owned it. So I'm not real sure why rivalry, but regardless, it's a big SEC game for both teams. It looked like Kentucky and Stoops had it going there for a while, but they've kind of settled back into being Kentucky right now. So how do you see this ball game?
Yeah, I think the rivalry was over a barrel of whiskey or something, or moonshine.
Hey,
So, no, I think Tennessee, if Tennessee can manage to maintain some emotional energy, they should be able to beat Kentucky. But Kentucky has improved under Stoops, so it should be a very interesting game and one that I'll keep my eye on. But I'm going to pick Tennessee to win that one.
I think I will too. All right, Seth, what's coming up with Gumbo for the Tiger Soul?
Hey, I'm pushing it still with my friends, just pushing it as a great Christmas gift for the Tiger fans in your life. Lots of great stories. And if you get it quickly, use some of the recipes for your Thanksgiving meal. Lots of great recipes submitted by Tiger fans that I've known for a long time. Lots of good Cajun treats. And I think things that you can add to your Thanksgiving menu as well. So Gumbo for the Tiger Soul, still available through authorhouse.com, amazon.com, Barnes & Nobles, and you can walk into any bookstore and they can order it for you as well.
Sounds good. And then next week we can spend all of our time talking about the clash of the Titans when LSU goes to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. And it seems like it comes down to this every year here lately.
Yeah, it's going to be something that I'll be reading as much information as I can over the next few days and preparing for our show next week. So I'll be eager to talk to you about it next week.
Yeah, and I just want to know, Mr. Big Shot, are you going to make the trip to Tuscaloosa?
No, I'm going to watch it in the comfort of my living room.
Well, I think that's probably a good place to be. And I find that I can yell anything I want to in my own home, and nobody gives me a lot of grief about it.
That's right. So I'm sure the LSU fans up there in the Tyler area are going to be getting together for a little watch. So that might be a little fun for you, unless you want to be able to be free and loose and be able to throw things at your TV screen.
I hope I don't have to do that, but that's probably very likely, though.
Oh, I don't know. LSU has all the potential in the world. If they play a complete game, I really do believe that they have the talent to match up with Alabama. It's just a matter of still being a little bit young. But I love saying that we're young and we're 7-0. That's awesome.
Right. That's a great position to be in. Seth, always a
Yep.
pleasure. Thanks very much. Again, I appreciate you sitting through the technical issue there for just a moment. But thanks for hanging with us, and we're looking
I
forward to
guess it
talking
was
to
like
you
the
next.
World Series, like the World Series, I bet, huh?
Exactly, exactly. Hey, buddy, thanks
All
again
right.
for coming on with us as always.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Seth Guerra, author of Gumbo for the Tiger Soul. I'm Brian Houston. That's the SEC report for Week 9. We'll come back next week, and again, we'll be talking a lot about that LSU-Alabama game, which could be for the SEC West, the SEC championship, maybe even a national championship when it all comes down to it. Thanks very much for watching today. You can see this and other Spreecasts on Rattle and Hum Sports at www.rnhsports.com. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next time.